It's December 7th, 2009, in West Valley City, Utah. Susan Powell, a 28-year-old mother of two, should be getting her children ready for school. Instead, her house sits empty, silent, except for the sound of two wet fans running in the living room at full blast. Her purse, keys, and cell phone are all inside. Her car is in the driveway. But Susan is nowhere to be found. When concerned family members call the police, they're told Susan's husband, Josh, has an explanation. He took the boys camping in the middle of a December night in near-freezing temperatures, and Susan chose to stay home. The problem? No one can reach Susan to confirm this story. And when Josh finally returns home 12 hours later, his explanation for their midnight adventure keeps changing. What police didn't know was that they were about to uncover one of the most disturbing family annihilation cases in recent memory. A case that would span 3 states, involve multiple suspicious deaths, and ultimately be solved not by traditional detective work, but by the digital breadcrumbs left behind by the very technology we carry in our pockets every day. This is the story of how cell phone data helped crack the case of Susan Powell's disappearance, revealing a web of obsession, violence, and a family's desperate fight for justice. Background, context. Susan Cox Powell seemed to have it all. Born in 1981, she was a devoted mother to her 2 young sons, Charlie and Braden, ages 4 and 2. She worked as a stockbroker and was known for her bright smile and dedication to her family. But beneath the surface of this seemingly perfect Mormon family, cracks were beginning to show. Susan had married Josh Powell in 2001, and the couple had moved to Utah to be closer to Josh's father, Stephen Powell. From the outside, Josh appeared to be a devoted husband and father. He worked various jobs in computers and finance, and the family lived in a modest 2-story home in West Valley City. But those close to Susan knew she was increasingly unhappy. In the months leading up to her disappearance, Susan had confided in friends and family that her marriage was troubled. She spoke of feeling isolated and controlled. Josh had become increasingly possessive, monitoring her activities and limiting her contact with friends and family. More disturbing were the financial problems. Josh had made several poor investment decisions, and the family was struggling with debt. But perhaps most telling was a conversation Susan had with a close friend just weeks before she vanished. She mentioned that Josh had been acting strangely, and she was afraid of what he might do. She even went so far as to say that if anything happened to her, Josh would be responsible. The Powell family dynamics were complicated by Josh's father, Stephen Powell, who had an unhealthy obsession with Susan. Stephen, a former social worker, had moved to Washington State, but maintained an inappropriate interest in his daughter-in-law that made Susan deeply uncomfortable. This family tension would prove to be a crucial element in understanding the events that followed. Timeline of events: 6 to 8 minutes. December 6, 2009 started like any other Sunday for the Powell family. Susan had planned to attend church with the children, but Josh convinced her to stay home. Neighbors later reported seeing Susan outside with the boys that afternoon, playing in the snow. It was the last confirmed sighting of Susan Powell alive. What happened next depends entirely on whose version of events you believe. According to Josh, sometime after midnight on December 7th, he spontaneously decided to take the boys camping in the Simpson Springs area of the Utah desert. He claimed Susan was tired and chose to stay home. This explanation immediately raised red flags for several reasons. The temperature was below freezing, the boys were toddlers, and no one takes children camping in December in the Utah desert without preparation. When Susan failed to show up for work on Monday morning, her employer contacted police. Josh's sister-in-law, Jennifer Graves, also became concerned when she couldn't reach Susan and decided to perform a welfare check. What she found at the Powell home was disturbing. The house was locked up tight, wet fans were running at full blast in the living room, and Susan's purse, keys, and cell phone were all inside. Police arrived at 3:58 p.m. on December 7th, nearly 16 hours after Josh claimed to have left for camping. The scene inside the house told a story that didn't match Josh's explanation. The fans appeared to be drying something, though the carpet looked normal. A small spot of blood was found on the tile floor near the kitchen. Most suspicious of all, Josh's cell phone showed no activity in the camping area he claimed to have visited. When Josh finally returned home around 5 p.m., his behavior was immediately suspicious to responding officers. He seemed more annoyed than concerned about his wife's disappearance. His story about the camping trip was vague and inconsistent. He claimed they left around 12:30 a.m., but couldn't explain why he would take toddlers camping in freezing weather in the middle of the night. The boys, when questioned separately, provided details that contradicted their father's story. 4-year-old Charlie told police that, "Mommy went camping with us, but she didn't come back." He also mentioned that his mother was in the trunk of the car. These statements from such a young child were heartbreaking and provided crucial evidence that Josh's story was fabricated. As police began their investigation, they discovered more troubling details. Josh had rented a car shortly before Susan's disappearance, claiming his van was having mechanical problems. However, the rental car showed evidence of recent cleaning, and Josh couldn't adequately explain why he needed to rent a vehicle for a camping trip he claimed was spontaneous. The investigation quickly expanded beyond the immediate crime scene. Police began examining the couple's financial records, phone logs, and computer activity. They discovered that Josh had been researching hypothermia and had visited websites about life insurance policies in the weeks before Susan's disappearance. Perhaps most damning, they found that Josh had withdrawn a significant amount of cash from their bank account just days before Susan vanished. Investigation details. The breakthrough in the Susan Powell case came through digital forensics, specifically cell phone data analysis that would become a model for future investigations. Detective Ellis Maxwell, the lead investigator, knew that in the digital age, our phones create a detailed record of our movements and activities. If Josh Powell was lying about his camping trip, his phone would tell the truth. Cell phone towers create what investigators call digital breadcrumbs. Every time a phone connects to a tower, whether for calls, texts, or data, it leaves a record. By analyzing these tower pings, investigators can create a detailed timeline of where someone traveled. This technology had been used in criminal investigations before, but the Powell case would demonstrate its power in a new way. The analysis revealed a shocking truth. Josh Powell's phone showed no activity in the Simpson Springs camping area where he claimed to spend the night. Instead, the data showed his phone had been active near the Pony Express Trail, a remote area about 20 miles southwest of their home. This location was significant because it was isolated, difficult to access, and would be an ideal place to dispose of evidence or even a body. But the cell phone data revealed something even more disturbing. The timeline showed that Josh had made several trips to this remote area in the weeks leading up to Susan's disappearance. His phone records indicated he had been there multiple times, always alone, always at unusual hours. This suggested premeditation. Josh had been scouting locations. The investigation also revealed that Josh had been methodically covering his tracks. Computer forensics showed that he had deleted thousands of files from his computer, including photos of Susan and family videos. He had also researched methods for permanently deleting digital files and had purchased software designed to wipe hard drives clean. Perhaps most chilling was the discovery of what investigators called the list. Found on Josh's computer was a detailed inventory of Susan's belongings, including her jewelry, clothing, and personal items. This list appeared to be a methodical catalog of everything that would need to be disposed of or explained away. The level of detail suggested this wasn't a crime of passion, but a carefully planned elimination. Investigators also employed ground-penetrating radar and cadaver dogs in the areas identified by the cell phone data. While they found several items of evidence, including Susan's wedding ring and other personal belongings, her body was never recovered. The remote terrain and Josh's apparent familiarity with the area made the search incredibly challenging. The digital evidence was supported by physical evidence that painted a picture of violence in the Powell home. Luminol testing revealed cleaned blood evidence in several areas of the house, particularly in the living room where the fans had been running. The pattern of the blood evidence suggested an attempt to clean up after a violent encounter. Resolution. Despite the overwhelming evidence against him, Josh Powell was never formally charged with Susan's murder. The case faced challenges that were both legal and logistical. Without a body, prosecutors felt they needed additional evidence to ensure a conviction. The circumstantial evidence was strong, but they wanted to build an airtight case. The investigation took a tragic turn in February 2012. Josh had moved to Washington State with his sons. where his father, Stephen Powell, had been arrested on charges related to his obsession with Susan. During a supervised visit with Charlie and Braden, Josh committed an unthinkable act. He attacked the boys with a hatchet and set his house on fire, killing himself and his 2 sons. The social worker who had brought the children for the visit called 911 in panic, but it was too late. The explosion and fire destroyed the house and took 3 lives. In Josh's final act, he had eliminated the only witnesses to his crime and ensured that he would never face justice for Susan's murder. The case officially remains unsolved, as Josh Powell died before he could be charged. However, law enforcement officials have stated publicly that they believe Josh murdered Susan and that the case would have gone to trial if he had lived. The digital evidence was so compelling that it had convinced investigators beyond any doubt of Josh's guilt. In 2013, Susan's family was granted a symbolic victory when a judge ruled that Josh Powell was responsible for Susan's death in a civil case. This ruling allowed the family to pursue wrongful death claims and provided a legal acknowledgement of what everyone already knew. Josh Powell had murdered his wife. Stephen Powell, Josh's father, was eventually convicted on voyeurism charges related to his inappropriate behavior towards Susan and other women. He served time in prison but continued to maintain his son's innocence until his death in 2018. Impact. The Susan Powell case represents a watershed moment in digital forensics and modern criminal investigation. It demonstrated how cell phone data analysis could provide crucial evidence in cases where traditional forensic evidence was limited or contaminated. The techniques developed during this investigation are now standard practice in missing person cases across the country. The case also highlighted the importance of recognizing warning signs in domestic relationships. Susan had confided in friends about her fears, but the system failed to protect her. Her story has become a catalyst for improving domestic violence resources and encouraging people to take threats seriously. Perhaps most importantly, the case shows how technology that many consider an invasion of privacy can actually serve justice. The same data that allows companies to track our movements for advertising can also help investigators solve crimes and bring closure to families. Susan Powell's story is ultimately one of tragedy. A young mother whose life was cut short by the person who was supposed to protect her. But it's also a story of how modern investigative techniques can reveal the truth, even when the perpetrator believes they've covered their tracks. In our digital age, the truth has a way of surfacing, leaving digital breadcrumbs that can lead investigators to justice. While Susan's body has never been found, her legacy lives on in the investigative techniques that were refined during the search for her killer. Her story serves as a reminder that in domestic violence situations, the most dangerous time is often when a victim tries to leave. And it shows that sometimes the most powerful witness in a case isn't a person at all. It's the technology we carry with us every day.